What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having an amazing day. Now, today I've got for you 3 fantastic entitled parent stories. In the first one, a lucky family get to enjoy first class on a plane for the first time. You know, amazing service, the ability to relax on a plane is just insane, and you know, it's probably going to be a fantastic experience. But unfortunately for them, a Karen is also in first class, and she proceeds to just absolutely ruin their trip. First time flying first class, ruined by a Karen. So, we're heading out for a family vacation, flying first class for the first time. Our group has 7 of the 8 seats adjacent to the cockpit, with one rando seated amongst us. And boy, did we find a Karen. Right from the get-go, Karen made her presence known. We board with my father-in-law, who is in a wheelchair, to find that for some reason, this lady boards the plane along with the passengers that need additional time to board, but she seems to be moving around just fine. It seems her motivation to do so was to pack not only her overhead compartments with her multitude of carry-on items, but she also needs to use all of mine and half of someone else's too. Okay, fine, whatever, we can deal with it. Then the flight gets delayed for being short crew, and Karen immediately starts demanding wine before we even leave the ground. As soon as the stewardess tells her no and walks off, she starts complaining to us about how trashy first class is with this airline. Now at this point, I'm already thinking, Jesus, can you please just shut the heck up already? Then comes the inevitable, we can just leave without the crew member, right? Apparently, she wasn't paying attention because the missing crew was the frickin' pilot. We were actually released back out to the terminal for a bit to stretch since the delay was so long. But when we return to our seats, we find that my daughter's seat was occupied by Karen's friend who was flying economy. After standing around and clearing our throats several times to try and get their attention, it becomes obvious they have no awareness of anyone outside their bubble. Frickin' finally, after both myself, my daughter, and my mother-in-law all asked them to clear out, they finally acknowledge that they're in someone else's seats. After all of this, we eventually get up in the air. Cue Karen slamming glasses of wine. After the 3rd glass, she's obviously already drunk as heck because she then dumped the entire 4th glass of wine on my teenage daughter and didn't even frickin' acknowledge that she'd done it. No sorry, no here's a napkin. She just immediately started demanding another drink from the flight attendant. All the while, she's keeping her mask down while she is drinking, as she's entitled to do so, but the second I take mine off to drink some water, this female dog grabs my arm and starts demanding that I put my mask back on. Are you freaking serious? You're gonna complain about a mask, but it's totally okay touching strangers? Okay, Karen. At this point, I finally tell the stewardess about everything, and they stop serving her. But she still spends the rest of the trip complaining about how trashy this airline is and trying to talk to my daughter the entire time, who is legitimately worried this moron is going to puke on her. Poor kid. OP, honestly, I'm so sorry for your first experience in first class to be as disgraceful as this. It's just such a shame, isn't it, really? I think I've actually said on my channel before, guys, that I've been fortunate enough to fly first class a couple of times through my dad's, flying points. I would never pay for it, of course. I think it's ridiculously expensive, but, through points, you might as well take up the offer. And it is a great experience, to be fair. You feel amazing. Everyone's looking after you. You can actually relax on a plane rather than being, all squeezed up with other people. It's good fun. However, if you have someone like this ruining your first ever experience, it just takes away from it all, doesn't it? And if your parents have spent loads of money on these flights and, it's just all been ruined by this one person, that's all that money down the drain for what would have been and what should have been an amazing experience, and now it's just something you really want to forget. Again, OP, I'm so sorry. And now moving on to our second story. Entitled man refuses to move from mobility parking spots. I am a manager at the Way of Subs, and yesterday I had a man park in the mobility parking space. I didn't see him park there at the time and come into our store. We were serving another customer at the time who had just started ordering, and the entitled man interrupted the other customer to ask what the sub of the day was. Already, this got my hackles up because he was so rude about it. I then look up and notice a car parked in said parking space, which is directly in front of our big glass doors. I looked at him and asked if that was his car. He said yes. Now, in New Zealand, people who qualify for mobility parking permits need to get a doctor to fill in the medical part of the form, and the doctor will often send the application form in for you, and you just need to pay for it. I'm not sure how other countries work, but that's us. So, back to the conversation. I say to the man, "Do you have a mobility parking permit?" "No, I broke my back and I can't walk that far." "Yeah, but you need a permit to be allowed to park there." "I'm still waiting for it to come." "It's illegal to park in there unless you have a permit. You need to move your car." "I'll just get my food, then I'll move it. It's only going to take me a couple of minutes." "No, you need to move your car now." The entitled man then plants his feet and drops his shoulders, almost like a 3-year-old who is not going to do what you asked. It sucks, but we can't actually do much to make people move from those parking spaces, other than ask them to move. The tow truck would take too long, and they'd already be gone by the time the tow truck gets here. I decided to say the only thing I could in this situation. They either move their car or speed out of there like a scorned lover. And yes, this happens regularly, but most people will just move their car. Now, I did a lot of theatre in high school, so I know how to project my voice without yelling. "Sir, we will not be serving you unless you move your car." Well, he spun around, like only someone who has an intact back could do, and stomped out like a big man-child. He threw himself into his car and sped off like someone was chasing him. The other customers who were in the store all had something to say. "I was about to go and move my own car, you were so intimidating." Wow, you're not gonna miss the $5 he was going to spend. Good job. People like that annoy me. My grandpa needs those parking spaces, so thank you for standing up to him. It makes me feel better that everyone else supported me. To be honest with you guys, and let me know if you agree with me down in the comments below, but halfway through that story, I genuinely wasn't sure if OP had gone too far and was just, assuming that this person was lying about their back when really they genuinely could have had a bad back and they genuinely could have applied for their permit that hadn't come yet. As in, do you get what I'm saying? How could OP possibly know? But then, as this guy spins around and runs out and gets in his car, it becomes very obvious that no, he doesn't have any back issues at all. He hasn't got a permit, he isn't waiting for a permit to arrive, and he's just trying to, be very lazy, park as close to the shop as possible and then get his stuff and go just because, it suits him and he wants to spend as little time walking from his car to the shop as possible. But yeah, ridiculous thing to do. My granddad has a disabled badge, we call it here in the UK, I believe, and that entitles him to go into these parking spaces that he needs because it's uncomfortable for people like him to walk a long way. Someone who is well-abled and is fully able to walk a solid distance and isn't handicapped should not be parking in those spaces. Imagine they were all full, as one of the last people in your store said, and their grandpa needs it just like mine does. Like, if they were forced to walk a long way to get into the store, they honestly may not be able to do it. Some people, in wheelchairs, whatever. Horrible thing to do, horrible person. Well done, OP, for standing up to them. And now moving on to our final story of today's episode. Entitled Dad wants my wife and I to get rid of our dog. For some background, I come from a South Asian Muslim family. In Islam, dogs are not allowed indoors because they are supposedly dirty and thus invalidate any prayer done in the home. Let's just ignore how dumb that is, considering dogs in the US are probably cleaner than many people back in my home country. OP, that is a crazy statement to start off this story, but anyway. Now, I personally am not religious. I know how to pray and will do prayers with relatives if visiting their homes and for certain holidays. But besides that, I'm pretty far from a Muslim in my personal views, and I don't regard religion highly in general, not just Islam but every religion. I am married to a non-Muslim Caucasian woman who had a lovely dog from before we met. I was always okay with dogs, but obviously never had one growing up. I not only fell in love with my wife, but also her dog. I am now a full-fledged dog person. Now, when my parents found out I was dating a non-Muslim and Caucasian woman, it was devastating to them. They always figured I would have an arranged marriage. My mum, to be fair, was quick to get over it, once she realised my wife is a great person and was happy to have a daughter-in-law. My dad eventually also seemed to get over it, but he is very religious and was not happy about the dog. He wanted us to get rid of her. We were able to work with a local imam who said it was actually fine for us to have the dog, since you can't just throw a living animal away, and if we kept a separate room for prayers. My parents and I live in separate homes, so us having a dog in no way impacts their home. So, now moving on to what's happening currently. After having the imam speak with my dad, I thought that would be it. My dad uses the yard at my house for gardening, and our dog did its business in his garden area. Now, normally she stays away from the garden area, but you know, dogs do dog things. We check 2 to 3 times per day in our yard to clear up any potential poop. But it just so happened on that one day that we didn't, because it was raining in the morning and we'd gone to our friend's place in the afternoon. We just planned on cleaning up the yard once we got home. For some reason, my dad had come over. He got angry. He started yelling at me and asked again when we were going to get rid of our dog. He didn't like that the dog used the yard, that it's against the religion, and apparently he can't bring his friends or my cousins over to our house because of the dog. I told him we were not getting rid of the dog, and I actually pointed out how many non-Muslim things he has done, which probably wasn't the best idea, and that I don't care if he can't randomly bring people over to my house. We would not want him to do that anyway, dog or not. He huffed and puffed and then drove home, where he did some more complaining to my mum and got into an argument about it with my younger brother, who, like me, isn't very religious. Yeah, this is a tough one really, isn't it? And to be honest, I'm not in the best place to even, sympathize or give my opinion on this because my parents aren't religious and I'm not religious, to be honest. But I know that it's going to be very difficult, and I'm assuming that lots of you watching right now may have very religious parents and you don't particularly follow their religion, or you're less involved in the religion than them. And for some parents, like these ones here, it can be the mum seems okay. The dad in particular, it can be a struggle, when the religion is such an important part of your life and your kids don't really seem to care. But ultimately, you have to just let them make their own decisions at some point, surely. And in this story, look, the dad probably doesn't like the fact that you do all these non-Muslim things, but ultimately, you're not a Muslim, so it's up to you what you do. It's a tough one though. Look, comment down below if you have very religious parents and you don't follow their religion to such an extent that they do, or maybe you do. Let me know. How was your childhood with very religious parents? I want to know because obviously it hasn't happened to me, but I can completely understand if it was difficult or maybe it was great. Who knows? Comment down below. Let me know. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode. Really hope you have enjoyed it. If you do want more from me right away, please feel free to check out a couple more videos on screen right there. If you are new to the channel, hit this button, turn notifications on, and that will subscribe you to the channel. Now, if you don't know what subscriptions mean on YouTube, they're totally free, and you get, notified, or the video pops up on your YouTube homepage if you subscribe. What an amazing feature. I don't know if you've heard of it, but do it, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye!